podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Let's go. Oh, 1 second, no one else is ringing us. I'm just going to ignore that. Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Howie the Podcast. It's Gav, and Jesus Christ, where do we start? I'm just going to launch straight into this because I've got so much I want to say. I can't even do a proper intro. Joining me is Martin. Hello, mate.
Hello, Gav. Yes, that all worked out pretty well at the end, didn't it?
Just, mate, it's the best night ever. I can't get me. Even still, I've woke up this morning and I'm still absolutely buzzing. I just can't get over what happened. I don't know how the lads did a podcast after the match last night, because once I got back to the car, I just couldn't talk. I couldn't believe what I'd seen. Like, I'm just looking down at my legs now. I'm absolutely covered in cuts on my shins. I ended up about 3 rows away, piles of bodies on top of us. Just honestly, probably the best moment we've ever had at the Stadium of Light, in my opinion. And I know people hark back to what happened, the Sheffield United playoff 27 years ago, whatever it was, and I'm sure it was amazing, but I was too young to appreciate it. This was something else. I'm still speechless. Just anyone listening who was there knows what I mean.
But you know what there's different things, and so there's atmosphere, right? So when we talk about the Sheffield United playoff game, and this is one of the things that Chris and Kelvin and Andrew and I talked about on this week pod recently. Like, that atmosphere at the Sheffield United playoff game was electric. You had the fog coming in. There was just an energy around the ground, electric energy around the ground that I'd never experienced since. And I wasn't there last night, so it might have been the same. But last night, you're talking about a moment in football, a defining moment. And, that Sheffield United playoff game didn't have that moment. When you think about moments at the Stadium Light, you think about, Defoe's goal against Newcastle, Barini's goal against Newcastle, things like that, don't you?
Yeah.
When I think of moments in football matches, I always go back to Gordon Armstrong's header in '92 against Chelsea at Roker Park, because very similar last minute header, when you kind of think you're going into extra time. So very sort of similar moment, but in terms of the magnitude of it, in terms of what it meant, in terms of the build-up that we've had over the past couple of months, really, because the past couple of months we've known this was coming, we've known that we were destined for the playoffs, and in a lot of respects, you can pick all sorts of bones in the performance and how we went about things last night, because for vast majority of the game, we were second best in a number of aspects. But if we weren't second best, you don't get that moment. You could, if we did really well, you could have stroked to a nice 3-0 win, and you don't get that moment. So in a lot of ways, it was all worth it for that last second, wasn't it? It was, there's so many subplots in the game. There's so many bits to it. But for that goal to go in, for that header to go in, for Ballard to put in after being like imperious for 2 lots of, I was going to say 2 lots of 90 minutes, for 90 minutes, another 30 minutes, because he has been head and shoulders above anybody else across those 2 games. So for him to get the goal, brilliant. But that in terms of a moment in football, and that's what we want. That's what we support football clubs for. That's why we watch football, for those moments. All the crap that you sit through, all of the downs and the so games that you go through, all worth it for that. But I'm struggling to think of another moment at the Stadium of Light that's better than that.
No, there isn't one. I know people will say Defoe's volley, Barini's goal. That was something. Again, I'm struggling to put into words what it was like. It was ridiculous. I mean, to be honest, the full day was unbelievable. From the minute we got to, because we stood outside the Colliery Tavern, obviously doing what majority of people did, lining the bus route. There were thousands and thousands of people waiting for that bus to come in. It went past very, couple of seconds and it was gone.
Yeah.
But there was just, you couldn't breathe for the red smoke and the noise. And you just knew from that moment it was going to be our night. I knew it. You can't have all of that and not get what you deserve in the end. And no Coventry fans will think they deserve to win, but for me, they didn't. I think it was just Sunderland's time. We defended like lions across 2 games. It's not all about having loads of possession, and can't remember Patterson making many saves, to be honest. They had lots of the ball and they threatened us, but we defended unbelievably. And Dan Ballard, by the way, the balls on Regis Le Bris to make that decision. That's going to go down as one of the biggest, most impressive decisions ever made by a Sunderland manager, to just bring him in for these 2 games, completely vindicated, because he was the best player in both games, and went and scores the winner. I mean, absolutely outstanding decision from the manager. And people who doubt Regis Le Bris and question things that he does, he's not perfect. He doesn't get everything right. But I tell you what it is, he hasn't half bloody earned our faith. Whatever route he decides to take from this point in the final, just have faith in him, because that call won us. That's why we're in the playoff final, because Dan Ballard. If he hadn't played, we wouldn't. I don't think we would have got through them 2 games.
I was going to say that I think, like, as good as Mepham is, if Ballard doesn't play those 2 games, we don't go through. Like, to me, it's as kind of cut and dried as that. And look, I think you're completely right with Le Bris, and no manager ever is going to get everything right. No manager ever gets every decision correct, and it not necessarily work out all the time. But like, what you can have complete faith in is whatever he does is really, really well thought out, and it's got a really good rationale to it, and it's got a really good thought process behind it. And it might not work, but as long as it works more often than not, then it's fine. And you saw over the 2 games, he was, he did a few things that were different. And look, again, you can go into the performance last night, and if you play that game 10 times, I'm not convinced we get through 10 times. But he made the subs as well that changed the course of the game, because the subs that he made and the timing of them completely changed it. And again, big decisions at the right time. In recent weeks, he's got them right.
Aye, and just to go back to the whole occasion, really, I think a lot of credit has to go to the club. The club nailed it. We've rightly criticised in the past when we've done things half-arsed, tin pot. Nothing about this was half-arsed. It was world class. From the social media marketing campaign around till the end, just the posters all over the city, taking over that big building near the ELS shop with the till the end thing, and really building this up as something different and separate to the real season. As I mentioned before, the fans lining the streets, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it was genuinely unique. It was unbelievable. And then, getting into the ground an hour before kickoff, it was bouncing, absolutely bouncing. Nearly everybody was in their seat 45 minutes before the game started. It was jumping, singing song. It was like nothing I've ever seen. The Jimmy Montgomery tribute, which, I guess everything else has kind of overshadowed that, but it shouldn't, because I think, again, the club, that was outstanding. So classy the way they did it, but they left it down to the players to do the important bit, which was on the pitch. And yeah, it wasn't great, to be fair. I mean, it's not going to go down as one of the most classic Sunderland performances of all time, is it? But at the same time, I think we, football's not just about attacking. It's not just about being good in possession. We didn't get them bits right, but defensively we were really, really good, and we were in the first leg too. And I kind of predicted that, to be fair. I thought that Coventry's game plan would probably be the same, and I thought our game plan would be the same. Yeah. And I think Le Bris is just so wedded to this belief that the players can defend in a way which gets them through games, that's the way we do it. And I'm not going to argue, because it's got us to a final, and it's more than I would ever have dreamt of at the start of the season.
No, so, that's right.
Yeah, I just an amazing night, mate. Like I wish every Sunderland fan, yourself included, could have been there to be there for it, because it was one of them. It'll go down in the in the annals as one of the greatest nights, if not the greatest night at the Stadium of Light. I think it was that good.
No, well, I think you're right. I think it certainly will do. But, you say the club got it right, and they absolutely did. And if you consider, after, what was it, the Swansea game at home, the Blackburn game at home, QPR game at home, that, if you cast your mind back, it's only, 2 weeks, a week and a half ago, or whatever it was. Like, everyone's feeling fairly shit about the whole thing, weren't they? And, we were talking about, will we even sell out for the playoffs? Because the feeling that people had with 5 defeats in a row, the prospect of playing Coventry, which people were, had a number of reasons to be concerned about. So you've got all of that going on. So you've got the club being really proactive and brilliant. I think David Bruce has probably got to take a lot of credit for that, because a lot of the things that you saw last night were from that, American sports entertainment, creating a spectacle that involves the fans, all that sort of stuff. And even the bus coming in, the fans lining the streets, that's, I'm sure that's all led by him. But none of that matters one jot if the players don't do what they did on Friday. And, we can talk about performance and all that sort of stuff. One thing you cannot criticise any of them for is determination, attitude, being completely mentally switched on to what they needed to do. And that drive and determination to get Sunderland to the playoff final, and hopefully more than that. And, no matter what the club do off the field, if the players don't come at the party with that bit of it, then it falls flat. So the two things have got to work in tandem. And I think, again, we're going to talk about performance, but the best thing for me was the determination on all of the players. Like, over the 2 legs, again, I'm sure there will be some games that we can go back to and think about, but, in terms of knowing what your mission is, knowing what your task is, and being so completely bought in to delivering that mentally and physically, in a couple of games, I can't think of many other times where we've done that. I think you probably go back to playoff games, don't you? Like the Sheffield Wednesday games under Alex Neil, where we had a real plan and we dug in and did it. But these 2 games were even better than that. You're playing against a better quality opposition. Obviously we've got better quality players now as well. But I just thought it was fantastic. And, people were questioning the manager before the playoffs and all that sort of stuff. There's absolutely no question at all that all of those players are playing for him. There's absolutely no question at all that he thinks really long and hard and strategically and in depth about every single decision he takes. And again, like, whether he gets them right or wrong, nobody's going to get them right all the time. But, he brings a real calmness to the whole thing as well, which was needed last night, because it would have been really easy for the players to get carried away with the emotion of the occasion and with the atmosphere and all that sort of stuff. And to have somebody on the sideline who can temper that a little bit. I don't know if you see when we scored, he goes nuts. And then he turns around, you're going, right, let's calm down.
Yeah, I saw that.
Let's calm down. I think you're the only person in the stadium who's got the ability to try to be calm at this point.
At that same time, I've got about 20 people piled on top of us.
He tried it, even though there was only seconds left. But going back to the original thing, that everything's got to come together, hasn't it? But if the players and the football and staff don't do their bit, everything else on the periphery is kind of irrelevant. So for them to come up with the goods when we needed them to do so, brilliant.
I just think we managed the occasion well. It wasn't just I know I've kind of said this a few times, but it wasn't just what happened on the pitch. The fans did their part. We asked, along with a couple of the other fan groups, for people to basically just, something in a bit more of a strategic matter. Would all say the coaches in, would all get in the ground. Tell you what, the fans did their part. Absolutely did their part. We were worried in the build-up about, the negativity that was coming off the back of those 5 defeats, and basically just trying to ground ourselves again, saying, if the fans do their bit, we'll get them over the line. I think 100% that was the case. I think in the away leg, the fans did their part. In the home game, you don't score a last-second winner to send you to Wembley without the fans being there with you every step. No. And it was, the atmosphere on the ground was unbelievable. And I've got to say hats off to everybody who turned up and did their part and tried to make this occasion sort of fall in our favour and not Coventry's, because it would have been very easy to have gone the other way. And I think we did our bit more than did our bit as a fan base. And just from my perspective, I'd like to say thanks to everybody who played their part, because we did.
No, 100%. And if you reverse those two games, and we'd had the first leg at home and the second leg away, I think we get beat.
Possibly, yeah. And Coventry's fans did their part for their team,
No, exactly they did. But when you get to those closing stages of extra time, I think, I thought we were great for the majority of extra time, and I think that was fun.
Do you know something? Just to cut across you there, mate. But when you think about resting players and giving them mental breaks, and we basically took a month off.
Yeah,
that's when it comes in handy, because when it came down to it, in the final seconds of the game, mentally, we were up. We were still sharp, and that second half extra time, there was only one team with anything in their legs, and it was us. Yeah. Again, it just vindicates the decision to do what we did, I think.
No, well, that's right. And on the pod that Chris and I did with Scott Wilson on Monday, we made the same point of the closing stages of the game on Friday, when in the last 10 minutes of that game, I thought Coventry looked leggy and we looked really energetic. And it looked as if we had a lot more in our tank. And that last goal that we get with Enzo Lefebvre chasing them down and Mayenda getting on the end of it, if you've flogged your players to death over the 4 or 5 weeks before that, they might not have that energy to go after them and put pressure on them. So, again, you can't criticise anything about the last couple of months. Really, now it's paid off. And this was why we did it all, to get to the final and give us a chance in a one-off game of getting to the Premier League. And they've got, 10 days off, 11 days off. They've got a day, I think they've got a day off, haven't they? I think Dan Neil said or somebody said they're back in on Thursday. But there's 10 days now to rest, recuperate, come up with a plan for the playoff final. And you've got 90 minutes, 120 minutes potentially, one-off game. Like, if anybody wants any validation of anything that's happened since we secured the playoff place, that's it right there, isn't it?
Yeah. And also a shout to the just to the staff generally around the club. So, anyone who was involved in the preparation for the players, but things down to the moving of the advertising hoardings became a bit of a narrative, didn't it? In the whole occasion, Sky even picked up on it and they were reporting it on their news channel and things. But I think that was mind games. It was nothing to do with the long throws. It was like it was us asserting some control and showing them, look, we're in control. This is our ground, And a couple of little other bits which may or may not be true. But I did hear that in the away dressing room, they turned the heating right up. The heating was on all day. It was red hot in there. They turned the water pressure down. They didn't clean it. They dimmed all the light bulbs. Just little marginal, little things like that where you can kind of mess with the opposition. All of those things apparently happened. The group who organised the display. I mean, best display we've ever had at the stadium. That big tifo with the black cap behind the goal, looked unbelievable.
Brilliant, yeah.
Did. And every seat had the foils. Everyone had something to make it look good. So hats off to the people who arranged that, because it's not easy and it's a thankless task. And, sometimes when they don't look so great, you get loads of criticism. And I imagine they probably think, bloody hell, we do this for free. Like, we're just trying to improve the atmosphere. On this occasion, outstanding. It looked brilliant. Just the whole day, mate, was mint. And I wish I could bottle that feeling up. I'm going to be walking around today just 10 foot tall. It's and every Sunderland fan should, because I tell you what it is. My 30 odd years I've been a Sunderland fan, and I've never experienced anything as good as that ever. And it makes up for getting beat off Cheltenham and Doncaster and teams like that in League One, and Phil Parkinson and Callum McFadden and George Dobson and shite like that we had to suffer through in League One. It makes up for all of that, because if you were there if you stuck by the club when all that shit was going on, when we had to watch our team assets stripped and the club falling to bits and the stadium dropping to bits, and an owner who didn't care, and owners who shouldn't have been in that position because they just weren't capable of running the club this big, and all you're getting embarrassed on Netflix and you've got fans of other clubs laughing at you, and all that crap we had to go through. That's why you do it, because you get a moment like that once in a blue moon that just reminds you of why you love it.
And like, you couldn't have scripted any better, could you? Like, if you were writing that for Netflix or whatever you wanted to do, you could not script it. In fact, if you did script it like that, somebody could say, "Don't be so stupid. That doesn't happen like that."
Gary Bennett saw it coming. Did you hear his commentary?
Bennett is brilliant, wasn't it?
That's mint. He went, I think he said something like, "It's coming," and then he just went, Dan Ballard.
Daniel Ballard.
Yeah. Daniel Ballard, and then bang, back to the net. On the goal, let's talk about the goal quickly, actually. How does he score that? Like, look, I couldn't tell. I've watched it about 1 million times. I couldn't tell if it comes off his back or the back of his neck, or I just don't know. What did Bomber describe it as on the reaction pod? It was the flamingo. It was a bit like that, wasn't it? But he's such an asset in them situations, isn't he, Ballard? Like, probably one of the best headers of the ball on set pieces, defending and attacking set pieces I've probably ever seen in Sunshine.
Well, I think that was probably sort of in Le Bris's thinking as well when he decided to bring Ballard in for Mepham, because, look, yeah, we all know the sort of defensive and aerial strength Ballard brings to the game, but he is such a big threat from set pieces. And we hadn't really seen it that much, had we, up until that point in the two games. But it was a really good ball in, first of all. And I think we've had, it's been interesting. Again, this is something that we talked about the other day. The set pieces had obviously worked on an array of set pieces, because it was Trey Hume, wasn't it, had that chance at the back post from a really well-worked corner in the first half. And that was a good shot, actually, and good save. And whether this one is a one that's been worked on, or whether this is just get on Ballard's head or get near there and see what you can do. But, Howie, it's pure determination, really, to get anything on that ball and to get it guided towards goal, because he actually jumps too early. And he said in an interview afterwards, he said, I jumped too early for the ball and I end up having to kind of get under it and almost kind of flick it. He flicked it with the back of his head, really, didn't he? But, again, determination to get there. Great ball in from Lefay. Great corner.
Oh, Lefay, I wanted to talk about him, actually. Sorry to cut in, mate, but Lefay, there you go. That's why we signed him. Both games, he's came up with quality.
And look, this is what I remember saying a few months ago. Really, Lefay can be the difference maker in the playoffs, and we just had to get him ready to be fit for the playoffs, and nothing else mattered. Once we were in the playoffs and couldn't really get automatics, nothing else mattered. And, you look at the first goal on Friday, his pass to Isidore. The second goal on Friday, him putting pressure on the fullback to then play my ender in. Corner last night. These individual moments of quality are why he was brought to the club to do that. Right. Yeah. And, again, we've got a huge task ahead of us to play Sheffield United. Obviously one of the best three sides in the league this season by the league table. The biggest appealing thing, or the biggest potential thing for me is if we go up, Lefay stays, because I want to watch him play for us over the next 2 or 3 seasons, because I just think he has got so much quality he hasn't really shown us yet, and because he hasn't been able to. And, again, it's something that we've talked about, and I can see why we didn't do it last night. But now that Mundell's back fit, and I thought Mundell looked great when he came on for that little spell at the end, if we can get Enzo Lefay in the centre of the field at Wembley, anything can happen, because he is so good. And, if Mundell's anywhere near approaching full fitness, if Lefay can get in the centre, then I think that becomes a whole different proposition for us as an opposition for another team to what we saw in the last couple of games as well.
Yeah, and I thought the subs were crucial. You mentioned Mundell there. Mundell's dynamism and 2 or 3 times he just cut inside and whipped a ball in with pace, and it caused no end of issues. But also, hats off to Chris Rigg.
Chris Rigg was brilliant.
Being on it, Patrick Roberts was shite, to be honest. He had a really poor game. I thought defensively he did okay. I think when we were without the ball, it wasn't really a game for Roberts, but I thought he was so wasteful on the ball. He just seemed to run into their defenders time after time. And when Rigg came on, there was a noticeable increase in quality on that side of the pitch. But he was just determined, because because their fullbacks wanted to push so high, Rig was just aggressive. He went up against them shoulder to shoulder. We were looking for the ball over the top. We got in behind a couple of times doing it. So hats off to both of them. For me, yes, we can talk about the superior fitness levels, superior mental sharpness, Ballard coming up with the goods and all the rest of it. But again, I don't think we win that game if those two players don't come on the pitch. And people were calling for them to come on a lot earlier. And you can sort of understand why they didn't. Because you think about Mundell in particular, right? We got a good 20-odd minutes out of him. That's probably all he was capable of. If we'd given him 40-odd or 50-odd minutes, he might have struggled towards the end of extra time when we needed him to be effective. Yep. So the game plan was clearly with Mundell. If we're going to get anything out of him, it's going to be a burst of energy. It's going to be 20-odd, 30 minutes tops where he can come on. Sort of like, remember when McGeady broke his toe back in the League One days? and it was like, how do you get the best out of Aidan McGeady when he's playing with a broken toe?
Yeah.
And it was a bit like that. We had to kind of think about it uniquely and go, hang on, if we just play him from the start of games, we're not going to get anything out of him. So I think Mundell, given he's been out for such a long time, it was a case of, do you want to start him in this game and not have that option late on in the match? I think Le Bris probably expected this game to go to extra time, or at least very deep in the game. He might need somebody like that, and that's why he was held off.
Well, look, I think he was held off because he like any player come back from injury, he wasn't fit enough to start the game. And when Chris and I spoke to Scott Wilson the other day, we were talking about, really Mundell will probably be on the bench. Le Bris will be hoping he doesn't need to use him. And really, if we do see Mundell, the game's not quite going to plan. So I think that was the scenario. I think, in an ideal world, we're 3-0 up, game finishes on 90 minutes and Mundell's an unused sub. I kind of disagree with you about him thinking it would go to extra time. And the reason for that is, I think if he did think that, he wouldn't have started Isidore and Mayenda together, because he would have wanted one of them to come off the bench as an impact. So that was something that really surprised me with the prospect of going to extra time, that we'd kind of almost put the house on not needing a central striker to come on with 20 minutes left or extra time. So, look, I think you've got that bit to it. I think Rig came on, did brilliantly. And look, that's really telling in terms of the atmosphere in the squad, because it would have been easy for him and Mepham to have a bit of the hump. They've been regulars all season, and to come into the playoffs and be sat down on the bench. Mepham hasn't had a second of action, as he? Rig's come on in both games. But Rig came on, did superbly well, and at the end of the game, one of the first people to run up to Ballard and jump on his back to Mepham, right? So that, again, you kind of see in the team spirit that's been created. And the Bris had talked about, every player in the squad's going to have a role to play, whether it's coming on the sub, whether it's starting, whether it's just supporting your teammates. You're going to have a big role to play. So you get that feeling that they're all in it together and they're all really, really invested in the success of the group rather than success of individuals. I think you've got two completely different scenarios with the subs there with Mundell and Rig. Mundell was only ever going to get 15, 20 minutes in an emergency, which it got to that point. Chris Rig, again, could count himself very unlucky not to start. I actually thought he should have started. And I thought Roberts was awful. And I actually thought at half time he needs to bring Roberts off, because not only was he playing crap, he was on the yellow card. And he could have, if you'd had a different ref, when he got yellow carded, the referee was already playing on for another foul that Roberts had done. So there was potentially two bookable offences in one.
There was a bit of that with Job as well, wasn't there? Job was also on a yellow and not playing particularly well, gave a foul away, and I was a bit like, next foul he's off. The manager stuck with him, to be fair. He trusted him.
No, he did, but at half time I was like, we've got to make a change to do something. I thought Roberts coming off for Rig would have been the change to make. But obviously, look, he didn't. And I think, there'll be... It's always that thing, is the way you go, it all worked out, so everything was fine. I think Le Bris will be sitting down today and tomorrow, and he'll be the most critical of himself, going, right, where did it not go as well as it could have gone, because if you take that last, it was like maybe the last 5 to 8 minutes of the first half of extra time, and then the second period of extra time, I thought we were great. And you kind of go, look, there's obviously a number of factors there. Coventry were tiring. We had a bit more legs. We brought Mundell on. We changed to the shape of the team a bit. We've gone back to that regular shape that we have rather than 2 up front. So there's a number of factors in it. But you kind of almost go, I know it's dead easy, right? But you go, God, why didn't we just play like that from the start? And,
yeah.
it's obviously not anywhere near as straightforward or as simple as that. But there's a little part of me kind of thinks, we actually played into Coventry's hands a little bit with the shape that we had at home and the way that we approached the game, because I just think if we're at our best and we actually play a bit progressively, I think we are far better than what we showed last night. I think we're a far better team than Coventry. If they play at the best and we play at our best, I think we are a decent amount better. And I think we kind of played in it. I think, it's about maybe giving them too much respect. It's about not being bothered about that and just being bothered about the outcome, which is fair enough. But it kind of all builds up, doesn't it, to how we're actually going to approach the final. And obviously that's another podcast for another day, really. But I think if we try to do a similar thing to Sheffield United on a big pitch at Wembley, it'll certainly be a long old afternoon. So we'll have to kind of we'll delve into that another day, won't we? But it's kind of all of that thinking but all of that analysis from the game last night and all of that thinking will now be kind of in Le Bris's mind, the coaching staff's mind, as they prepare. Because you remember when we played Sheffield United at home, I think that was the first time we did that 4-4-2, wasn't it? We played with Mayenda and Isidore up front, and that worked that night. We were caught them by surprise. So that's potentially a really good thing for us to have against Wilder, because we've played them twice, 2 different formations. We sprang a surprise on them last time that worked. You'll be watching the semi-finals and going, 4-4-2, might do that again. So but the point being, it'll be a really hard game for them to prepare for tactically, because they won't know what to expect from us. So, look, there's tons to that, but like ultimately, still brilliant. Like I don't really give a toss what happened, how it all played out. It was just that moment at the end was just everything you could ever want, wasn't it?
Oh, again, I'm not going to stop watching it. I can't stop watching it. I just think, I prayed the full game. I don't think I had my fingers uncrossed. Kept looking up to the sky, hoping for something to happen, because it was getting tense in there. It was difficult. It was really difficult. We weren't great for large swathes of the game, and Patterson didn't have much to do with it, really. He didn't have a lot of saves to make. But it's just that constant pressure, isn't it? And it takes unbelievable mental resilience as a group of players to be able to just defend wave after wave of attack. And I think that's perhaps the biggest credit I can give the team, is that in both games they never wavered. There was never a sign. Well, we might be nervous as fans watching the game. I never got a sign from the players that they were nervous at all. I honestly think that there was full belief from the players to the coaching staff in this approach completely. We wouldn't be in the playoff final if there wasn't.
No, that's exactly right.
And that's something people should keep in mind when sort of deliberate. Oh well, we should have done this. We should have done that. Well, if the players are bought in, the coaching staff are bought in, it's got us this far. You may have to just suck it up, because it's the way we do things.
That's exactly right. And look, even if you look at the performances on face value, you might go, well, this wasn't great or that wasn't great. But if you look at the game overall, even last night, as we say, Patterson didn't have any save to make. Obviously, we conceded 1 goal. Wilson pulled off two great saves. One from Hume in the first half. Second half, and one from Mayenda in the first half. Or the other, it was Mayenda in the first half and Hume in the second half. So look, we created the best chances, even though we didn't have great possession, all that sort of stuff. We actually still got the best chances in that game. And look, the dynamics of a game like that, where you've got a home leg and away leg, completely different to a normal game. Anyway, you can't treat it like a normal home game. There's so many other factors at play. So look, it does, as the Irish taxi driver once told me when he took me on a massive detour and charged me about €100 extra. It doesn't matter about the journey. As long as you end up where you want to be, it's fine, mate.
What did you make of Frank Lampard? Did you hear his crack after the game or not? What did you make of that? Because he got a bit of stick from Sunderland fans for being a bit blunt. He seemed a bit gutted, obviously, but what did you make of it?
I didn't have a problem with anything he said. I think if you look at it objectively,
I was gonna say, I was waiting to see what you'd say there, because I agree. I saw people giving him shit, and I was like, I don't actually think he said anything wrong there.
No. And look, I think we've talked about before, haven't we, in terms of like when the manager gives a press conference or gives an interview, he's actually communicating with different people on different levels. So he's got to basically pick the fans up of the club. He's got to rally the players. He's got to emphasise, that they were unlucky and all this sort of stuff to try to build their confidence back up, because that is a devastating way to lose any football match, never mind the playoff semi-final. Absolutely devastating. So they will be on the floor all summer. And his job to pick them up started as soon as that whistle went last night.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, he's got to be a bit bullish in terms of, yes, he's going to be devastated. But as he said in his interview, he's been there in Europe, he's been there internationally, he's experienced that sort of devastation before. A lot of the players haven't. So, he's doing his bit. And look, I think even if you analyse what he said, I don't really disagree with it. I think they were the better side last night for large spells in possession. And again, I think if you play that game 10 times, you could probably toss a coin who comes out victorious, really, because it was down to moments rather than anything else. So, look, I think if he was our manager in the same situation, I don't think any of us would have a problem with anything he said. I think he's doing his job.
Yeah, I thought the same. I was curious to see what you thought about it, because I saw him getting a bit of stick, but I think he was pretty spot on, actually. And
you know what, Gav, as well, I think he started off by saying all credit to Sunderland for winning the game. Congratulations to them. You know what, like, fair play. And if he wasn't a bit sort of, upset and a bit bullish about it, because, again, I think his point was that his players have done everything he's asked them to do, and they've turned in good performances over the two legs, and they could count themselves unlucky. And really, I think that they probably could. Likewise, we would have counted ourselves unlucky if we come out the wrong side of it. So, no, I think he's fine. I actually quite like Frank Lampard as a manager. I think he probably gets a bit of an unfair criticism for certain things.
Well, you look at his record, and he took Derby to the playoff final when they were really an unfancied team. Yeah. Did okay with Chelsea, but then I don't think that's a great job, to be honest. I think it seems to be, it's one of them at the minute, isn't it? It doesn't matter who goes in, unless they win trophies.
Chelsea and Man U, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wouldn't particularly want either of them at the moment.
Then Everton probably the wrong job for him, but did okay, actually. Didn't do too bad. But Everton, again, are just a club who circle the toilet bowl year after year and manage to stay up, don't they? And then when he got appointed there, obviously, Mark Robins, a club legend, gets the sack as a result. And I don't, that was to go in there, it's like following Alex Ferguson, maybe not to the same degree, but, in relative terms for Coventry, because he took Coventry all the way from League Two to the Championship, and, and just took them into a cup final, hasn't he? Or was it a cup semi-final last year? Regardless, Mark Robins, Mark Robins, absolute club legend. Yeah. And to follow in them footsteps and take them from 17th up to the playoffs was an unbelievable achievement. So I have got a bit of admiration for Lampard, even if sometimes he does come across as a bit of a tool. Like, he's a good manager, and I think he's surprised a lot of people with the job that he's done there. But regardless, I'm not too fussed on Coventry. I'm just so glad that we got, not obviously massively excited about the prospect of going to Wembley and buzzing that we got there, but to do it at the expense of Coventry makes it that little bit sweeter, doesn't it? After everything that's gone on over the years, the angst between us. I think it gives it that extra little bit of, it's like the cherry on the top of the cake, isn't it? The fact it was Coventry, because I would much rather, I was hoping for Bristol City, but I don't know. I don't think the occasion would have been as great had it not been Coventry. I think this was the right game for us.
No, it's right. And, yes, absolutely. That occasion, even the atmosphere and everything around it had been built up over a period of time, hadn't it? And I was reading some sort of, I can't remember what it was. I was reading something, and people were saying, really, when you kind of analyse it, there was a big spell in the, and look, I remember it was the League Littlewoods Cup, wasn't it, in 1989-90 season, when we played Coventry over 2 legs, and Gary Bent and David Speedy had the altercation in the clock stand. And I remember being at that game in Coventry. We were a top flight club at the time. We were second division. And that, bear in mind, that was only just over 10 years after this whole thing with Coventry and the delay in the kickoff and all that sort of stuff happened. There was no talk of that around that game at all. It had been forgotten about almost. I remember playing them at Roker Park when Peter Reid was manager. We were in the top flight, and Steve Agnew scored a goal in the Fulwell end, and we beat them 1-0. Again, there was no talk about, I think it was Game Quinn got injured. There was no talk about that incident then. It's only kind of re-emerged over the past decade or so, really, or 15 years. And it's been built up and built up and built up. And, our record down there hasn't helped that situation. But, I think there's been other things at play. I think, when Coventry came up here on a couple of occasions, there was a lot of things thrown down and all that sort of stuff, wasn't it, from the away end? So I think all of these things...
I remember as well, sorry, mate, I remember as well when, I think it was the first game in League One. I think we drew 1-1, Cattermole scored.
Yeah.
And there was absolute hell on outside the ground as well, fans fighting and all that. You're right. It's all these, it seems to be every time we meet them, there's something. So this'll be another thing, the fact that we've played them in the playoffs and managed to get to Wembley ahead of them. Next time we face off with Coventry, hopefully that'll be a long time now. But next time, it'll be part of the narrative, won't it? It'll not.
Oh, of course it will.
I don't think you'll ever draw a line under it, because, how can you? It's always going to be there, the fact that they cheated us. It's always going to be there. And
but again,
as long as there's Sunderland fans walking the planet who experience that, and my dad will not get over it. My dad said, I'll never forgive them for it.
Yeah.
You never will. So as long as people of my dad's era are still walking around and watching Sunderland, that angst is always going to be there. But it's living through the young fans now. The amount of times I heard Jimmy Hill sang about yesterday from people who probably only, just left school, you know what I mean? They don't even know who he is.
Didn't grow up with him on Match of the Day. But, and again, we're recording the next episode of On This Week tomorrow night and or tomorrow morning, and that Coventry game is the first on the list. And I was putting that schedule together, I was like, oh, fuck. Are we going to be really wanting to talk about Coventry the day after the game? Are we going to be relishing it? And I'm very excited and happy to be talking about that again now. But look, I think it's that rivalry that's been built up. But I think it really got ramped up after we played the match Coventry a couple of months ago. And look, no matter how the Coventry fans kind of try to change the narrative and change the version of what happened, they were so overconfident, arrogant in the build up to that first leg. And people going, oh, there was only one bloke who had "We're going to Wembley" 25 on his shirt. There's videos of them all singing "We're going to Wembley." There's recordings of you talking to somebody going, we were praying we got Sunderland. And you go, well, you won't be praying it again, will you? Because, and I just think, and obviously they're going to try to switch the narrative. And the reality is it's probably a minority of the fans who were doing it, but it's a vocal minority, and it kind of sets the tone for everything, doesn't it? I'm just wondering what that fella who got the tattoo, what did they say? Sunderland
get battered everywhere they go or something, wasn't it? It was something like that.
It was.
Yeah, cover and then play up Sky Blues. I don't get that. But again, though, it's a right. It just makes it feel that much better, because that gimp with Wembley. It was Wembley again. Ole ole 25.
That's
was
right.
On the
Yeah.
shirt.
And if
that gimp with that on the back of his shirt, if I was him, I'd never show my face again, because it's embarrassing. His picture is out there now. That's always going to be there. he's the embarrassing fan who got that print on the back of his shirt, and I hope he feels like a right twat this morning.
It was a high risk one, wasn't it?
It was. At least with the tattoo, you can get lasered off and pretend it never happened. You know what I mean? But
again, there's plenty of evidence, isn't there?
Yeah, it was just such a sweet night. We're not going to get bored of talking about it, and I suspect in the next sort of 10 days till we go to Wembley now. I suspect we're going to relive that night over and over with various people, and I won't get bored of talking about it. I feel like we've only scratched the surface today talking about it. Obviously, later on today, the Wembley tickets go on sale. I'm going to try and sort my trains and travel. Just exciting. Expensive, very expensive, but exciting. So there'll be plenty more to come on that, I guess, over the next few days, mate. We'll be building up to that playoff final, I'm sure, in the most emphatic of fashions, because we haven't really mentioned Sheffield United, but I don't want to. It's not about that today. It's about just reliving that sort of that moment, isn't it? And I'm not going to get bored of talking about it. And I'm still on cloud nine. I was really excited to record this morning just to get some of this out, because I feel like, my missus doesn't care about football at all. And she woke up this morning, she didn't even mention the match to us. And I said, "You're not going to talk about the match?" When I'm not bothered. And I'm just like, "Oh, please, I just want to talk to somebody about the match." Completely not bothered about football whatsoever. To her, I'm just going off for another piss up. And she doesn't understand it, but yeah, just I can't wait to do another podcast. Let's get back together in an hour or so, mate. We'll just do this again and chat shit for another hour.
There's plenty to talk about.
That's it. Thanks, mate. It's been good. Really enjoyed it. Thanks to the listeners. As I've just said, all the way up to the final and beyond the final, we will be building up to it. We'll be chatting to different people. We'll be podding virtually every day, or at least once a day. We seem to be knocking out pods left, right, and centre at the minute. So make sure you don't go anywhere. Like I said before, we've got so much excitement and so many stories to tell. That'll be various voices on over the coming days to chat about this game and what's to come. So get subscribed if you're not already subscribed. Thank you very much again, Martin. Thanks to the listeners. We'll be back probably tomorrow with another podcast. We'll see you then.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.